Welcome to the 1 o'clock session on moving manufacturing forward, applied AI training for your workforce. My name is Brad Piazza, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs at Waukesha County Technical College. And I have a panel of esteemed colleagues who will introduce themselves shortly so we can have a little conversation around AI. Just by a show of hands, how many of you have interacted with WCTC in some way, shape, or form in the past couple of years? Most of you? Awesome. So also with us today is our president, Dr. Barnhouse. I was glad to see you raised your hand as well. Thank you. For those of you who might not be as familiar with WCTC, we're located just up the road in Pewaukee, and we are a two-year technical college, also now offering liberal art degrees. We're 101 years old, and we offer programming everything from healthcare to culinary to IT to AI, advanced manufacturing, and pretty much everything in between. So very much a valuable resource in your local community for your workforce demands as well as personal enrichment and so on. So WCTC has embarked on the AI journey in earnest a couple of years ago, and so we last year launched 3 certificate programs around AI. This fall launched the first 2-year Associate of Applied Science degree in Artificial Intelligence, certainly the first one in the state, quite frankly, maybe the first one in the Midwest, if not in the country, in that 2-year space. We opened our Applied AI Lab, so the director of our Applied AI Lab is with us today, and the purpose of that lab is really entrepreneurs in AI and helping them get off the ground, and also an accelerator for those who are already in the AI space looking to grow their businesses. And so we're really excited to be able to have that on our campus, and you'll learn a little bit more about that as we go on. We're also next fall starting the first automation integration program in the state of Wisconsin through our manufacturing area. And as you'll hear today, we're really here to help all of you that are in that manufacturing space scale your operations and provide that support as you embark on your AI journey. So with that, I'm going to have the panelists introduce themselves, and then we're going to get into a series of questions here. So, Allie? I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Nicki Kowalchuk. I'm the program lead for our data and analytics programs, and I help develop our AI certificates and AI associate's degree at WCTC.
I'm Dan Lindberg, director of the Applied AI Lab, and also program lead for our AI Data Specialist program. I run the day-to-day operations of the lab, work with the startups and entrepreneurs, making sure they have the resources they need. And I'm developing workshops in the lab as well for folks off the street to come and experience AI and learn how to use AI in their jobs, hands-on.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mike Shiels. I'm the Dean of the School of Applied Technologies at Waukesha County Technical College. So I work with our engineering, advanced manufacturing, and automation programs.
Very good, thank you. So the first question, and all of you certainly can go ahead and answer this: how will the role of AI evolve in the manufacturing industry, and what skills should the workforce develop to stay ahead? Nicki, do you want to start, and we'll go down the line?
Sure. I think AI is just going to revolutionize manufacturing. Obviously, we've been talking about Industry 4.0 for a while, and AI is just going to help with streamlining your processes, with reducing the errors, the outputs, just making everything hopefully run smoother and produce more outputs for you. I'll let Dan piggyback on this.
Yeah, I think AI is in manufacturing is interesting because here we start to see how AI is sort of differentiated even within itself. We have the generative AI, ChatGPT, Copilot, all that fun stuff, and that's going to be part of it. But here in manufacturing, there's been methods that have been used for quite some time, whether computer vision or different machine learning algorithms. So just think about everything on a production line that could generate some bit of data or information: sensors, controllers, cameras. All that is fresh for the mining. So I think data mining and data engineering, getting those pipelines of information flowing into some model to make use of it are going to be key moving forward.
One of the areas that we hear our employers talking about it most is on the vision side with quality. And vision and AI have been around for a while in the automation and manufacturing, and many of you have probably already worked with that, but we see that as being a really critical part of our program and training our students to train those models, as well as supply chain management is another area that can be very beneficial in manufacturing, and then of course the predictive and preventative maintenance.
Mike, can you talk just for a minute? I had mentioned at the beginning the manufacturing integrator, how the integrator program is going to help manufacturing and AI, and how all of that will get connected through there.
Sure. So we're going to be starting a 2-year associate degree next year on automation integration. And we currently have an automation program where the students learn to build automated equipment, they learn to maintain it, and they learn to program it. So the next step for us is having those students being able to go into a manufacturing setting, look at a manufacturing line, identify problems, identify bottlenecks, and then look at how automation could be used to speed up that process or just be more efficient with the workforce that they have. So this integrator program is really going to be that program where students understand the manufacturing process, they understand quality, lean, and then also all of the sensors, the programming, PLCs, HMIs, that production workflow of where that data is, and how that can be utilized to enhance production using AI.
Good, thank you. Dan and Nicki, this question is for you. What data needs to be collected and organized in order to effectively implement AI in manufacturing? And then the follow-up would be, what skills will be required in the workforce for that?
If you want to be able to do anything with AI or with the data, you have to collect it. So it doesn't matter, it's not a matter of it being a particular thing, but what value is there to your business. If you want to do predictive maintenance, you have to be able to collect the data points on the particular machine that are going to tell you if something's going to fail, right? With our predictive models, you can see that, okay, this temperature is now running outside of the normal thresholds for this temperature. Eventually, that's going to indicate that that piece is going to fail. If we collect enough data over time, we're going to be able to know what's a normal temperature spike on a particular piece in your machine versus this temperature is indicating this part is going to fail very quickly. So I wouldn't say there's anything in particular except what is the value to your business? What are you trying to accomplish? And then understanding what data do you need to have in order to meet that end goal.
And I would say, think of this in terms of where you can go to collect the bits of information, because you might not know, I certainly don't know, all of what's needed to get a good predictive model, for, let's say, a predictive maintenance application. But, you can start by going to the programmable logic controllers and seeing what information they have. But also go to the manufacturers of the robotics you have, see what options they have for you to access that data, organize that data. Some groups are more willing than others to work with you, but try to consolidate that the best of your ability. And then, again, think broadly more with logistics systems, supply chain, enterprise resource planning. All that should feed into one central location, because the models are getting good enough where it can identify patterns and make a prediction. We might not know why it's making that prediction. We just know that prediction's relatively accurate. What that means is that there's elements like metadata, so the data on the data, maybe who generated a report or from what machine or IP address, all that stuff could come into play. We just now have the computing power and the models to be able to make sense of that in an applied environment.
So a follow-up to that, and maybe Mike and Nicki are best to speak to this, and I'm going to use some highly technical terms here. I know we're putting some things on our manufacturing machines in our labs to feed live data back to our AI students. Can you talk a little bit about that and how we're getting our students ready for these challenges?
Sure. As Nicki mentioned earlier, Industry 4.0 has been around for a while. So it's connecting that equipment when needed, either on a network where that data may be collected to the cloud, or it may be hardwired where that data is going to a PLC and then maybe to a server on site or a computer in that workforce environment. So those are the things that we're working on with our students, is the connectivity of those machines. Where is the data going to be collected? For what application is it going to be used? And then in some cases, the students will be cleaning up the data so it can be used in that next phase.
So to truly pull these things off, you need a marriage of the industry skills and the data skills. So as a data person who's not had a whole lot of in-depth experience with manufacturing, I can't walk in and just make this happen. And on the same note, the people in manufacturing, the shop floor people, they know what's going on the lines. They understand what you're doing, but they don't have the data skills to make anything happen. So it's truly a collaboration between those who understand the actual skills, the actual machines, and what needs to happen there, and the data people who have the tools to pull the data and to build those models. But unless we understand the business value or the business impact, or even what do these pieces mean, we're not going to build anything of value as a data person.
Thank you. This next question is for all of you. So Dan, I'm going to start with you. What are the key challenges businesses face when integrating AI into their manufacturing processes, and what training would address these challenges?
So I think the first is just talent workforce, getting everyone up to speed on how to employ these tools and techniques. It really is a marriage of the operational technology and the information technology. And above all that, the more of the overall business acumen you can weave into that, the better, because it helps you sort of identify the highest value cases in an organization. And I would say there was a study done by a Stanford, MIT, and University of Toronto economists. So an unholy trinity of three economists. But they looked at manufacturing firms in Indiana, 30,000 firms in Indiana they surveyed on their use of predictive analytics. And so the value of predictive analytics can be very similar to artificial intelligence, predicting equipment failures. They found that the organizations that had strong IT capital, they were focused on being productive and efficient. So there's a lot of words or a lot of different ways you might articulate this, but just think lean processes. And then they had skilled labor as well. If you had those three things, you were able to benefit from see a tangible like $1 million in sale benefit from deploying predictive analytics. So it's getting the workforce up to speed, making sure the information technology is there, then making sure you have that cultural appetite to be productive and efficient. And I'd say even more productive and efficient. It's sort of like a stance or a posture you have as a organization.
I think some of the biggest challenges we're going to see are the challenges we've always seen. A new tool comes along and it's shiny and it's bright and people want to use it, right? Artificial intelligence, this is cool. Let's just see what it does, right? If we don't have our processes together as a business, if we don't understand the value that we want to get out of this, and we don't put enough work in to streamline our processes, to collect our data, to make sure it's clean, to train our people, to really get them to buy in, this isn't going to go anywhere. So it's the same old problem we've always had with just a new bright, shiny tool.
Mike, anything to add?
One of the things that I hear most is just like quantifying the return on investment. If we're purchasing this new software, this new tool, hiring this person, what's the return on that investment going to be? And so I think it's quantifying that, identifying like what problem you're trying to solve with the AI, what productivity you're trying to enhance, and then trying to put a dollar amount on that. But that's the challenge that I hear most is like quantifying that ROI.
That's actually really hard to do too, because often the benefits of these sort of investments are found sort of in the spillover effects. So the groups that have been able to do it well, McKinsey's tracked this. They call it their Global Lighthouse Network. They're looking at more Industry 4.0 technologies, of which AI is a very key and critical piece. But the ones that selected the right use cases were the ones that were able to see success and generate returns. What those use cases meant, that it might not necessarily be, you're focusing on, digital floor technologies or back of house operations. It was just something that could start a chain reaction, really. So, breaking, what do they call it in pool? I'm horrible at pool. No, breaking like a pool rack.
The rack.
Yeah. Haven't played pool in a while, clearly. But starting those chain reactions is everything. And you start those chain reactions, it'll start to bubble up. And then you can start to see where some of those impacts have arisen. Some of those gains could be from an upstream supplier deploying a technology, making them more efficient. That enables you to be more efficient too. So local connections and networks are key in that, sort of as you vet out potential returns and applications.
Good. Thank you. Mike, this one's for you. Dan and Nicki, though, if you have something to add, by all means. Mike, you're out on manufacturing settings all the time. Can you give us an example of where AI has been successfully implemented in manufacturing and what measurable impacts it's had on productivity and efficiency?
So the biggest impact that I've seen is with vision in AI for inspection. And we worked with a company that wanted to inspect certain parts that they were making. They had the person that was producing the part inspect the part. And of course, just the issues inherent with that type of situation. But they wanted to take really that person out of the equation when they're inspecting what they're building before they move it on. So that training the vision algorithm in the vision system was very easy to do. We used the package that came with the vision system, and it was a matter of really working with their engineering department to make sure we had the right images to train the AI, and then as it continued to evolve, then they would continue to add and train those models to make it even more efficient. So in terms of like an outcome, I don't have an outcome at this point, but in many of the manufacturing companies that I talk about, that's where most of them say they're looking for or looking at first is vision, either in a robotic application or just somewhere in the production process and training the models.
In a previous life, I worked at Joy Global, who is now Komatsu, that builds the big mining equipment that are used all across the globe. And one of the projects that they were working on and I assisted with was basically a predictive maintenance model. So with mining, mine sites are very remote. They're in some of the remotest parts of the globe. And the scale of these machines means that they couldn't just stock lots of these parts. So if a machine goes down in the middle of Africa, they have to then put the call in, the part's got to be manufactured and then shipped to Africa to be installed. So an outage for them could be upwards of $100,000 in lost profits. By employing a predictive model, they can start to see this machine is struggling. This machine is going to go down soon. Let's put the part order in. Let's get it shipped. Let's schedule that outage so that we can control the downtime, not let the downtime control us.
Dan, did you have anything?
Some of this has been studied pretty well in Germany, and they looked at manufacturing firms in Germany. Like 6% were deploying AI in some capacity. They found, they were able to, be more efficient, so there were productivity increases. There was a boost in sales, but what was interesting, they found these companies were more innovative. So they were launching new products to market quicker, faster, and better. So some of these returns could be, hey, we've got this production line up and running. We don't have to worry about that so much. We can focus on something else. And for those firms that were deploying these technologies, they didn't lay anyone off. The existing labor force was elevated in a way so that instead of operating machine, they were technicians on the machine, making sure it was working as best optimally. And they saw other sectors in their economy grow as well. So there's some real interesting stuff coming out in some of the early research as well.
Very good. Thank you. Dan, keep the mic. So for manufacturers that are just wanting to start the implementation of AI, what skills are necessary?
I think you'd want to assess to the extent to which you're digitally transformed. So it's not just what are we doing in the office and how are we organizing our files and our data. All that's part of it, but also on the shop floor. What sensors are we employing? Cameras, controllers exist. Where's data being generated, and how can we collect that? So it starts small. It just starts by collecting it, sometimes for collection's sake. But I think now we're at the point where we can start to see some of those early returns and pilot and prototype some of those applications. But it would come down to evaluating the extent to which you're digitally transformed, not just in the office, but on the shop floor.
Nicki, anything?
Like Dan said, you need that digital transformation, but I think it's a mindset that you need. A mindset to think, what could we do? What could be done? So you need to know what solutions are out there and have the technical understanding of what is necessary to develop or implement those solutions. A small manufacturer is probably not going to have the skills or the headcount to be able to do this by themselves, but a lot of the new software vendors or a lot of the existing software vendors are offering new solutions that can help you with vision systems or predictive maintenance. But you still need somebody on site that really understands how that works and how that functions. Because if something interrupts the connection between your systems and their system, the data is not going to flow. You still need those technical people to make sure everything is running correctly.
Mike, anything to add?
I was just talking with one of our instructors late last week that's teaching our first OT course for IT students. And he said, along with the PLC, they're going into that PLC to extract data. He's teaching them how to do that. But the last thing that can happen is that an IT person can go in and mess with the logic of a PLC. That's what's keeping that production line running. So it's training the students on the basics of where is the data, how can I go in and collect that data, what do I need to use to extract it, and then in doing all that, making sure that it's not hurting any other systems that are in place.
So we touched on this a little bit, but I'll give Mike, I'm going to start with you, an opportunity to expand if you want. So we talked about the skills necessary for implementation, but even before that, what are some of the prerequisites that companies should be thinking about before they go down this road in manufacturing?
Nicki, I think, mentioned it in her opening remarks about just making sure that your processes are clean to begin with. AI isn't going to fix a process. You need to make sure that your parts are all being, and they might fix it on the front end, but you need to make sure that every part that you're assembling is built to the specs of the plant. And you need to make sure that all of your processes can flow smoothly if everything that's involved in the production is done right, it's done accurately, and that we're not trying to use AI to fix another problem. So you really have to understand your processes and make sure they're all running smoothly.
AI is not a magic button as much as we want it to be or think it might be. We have to already be doing the things in a manner that the AI can then elevate it, right? If we don't have on a line, if it's not good output, if we're not meeting the quality standards already, AI is not going to be able to help, because if we can't tell that vision system what's a good part and what's a defect, it can't really do that without a whole bunch of training data. So that prerequisite is still, we have got our processes clean. We understand what we're doing. And I feel like that is the most overlooked part of all of these things. People just think it's just magic. It's just going to work. Hate to break it to you, that's not the case. We still have to put in that hard work to make it happen.
ChatGPT is magic to me, but Dan?
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier, but it's that focus on developing a IT capital stack that makes sense for your production line, your business, both back of house and shop floor. It's having that focus on efficiency and improving productivity, and that's a cultural stance. And when I say cultural stance, it's everything from the C-suite to developing training and programming to embrace that down to the shop floor, and then it's training the workforce development. So that intersection of operational technology and information technology. Just keep it simple, boil it down. The smart home. A lot of these devices. Many people can just set up at home, and they're gaining familiarity doing it. I'm getting up on a ladder that is probably about 50 pounds. Can handle 50 pounds lighter than I am, but putting in my Ring camera and on my phone, connecting it, all that. It's going to be stuff like that, and that camera doesn't work perfectly. There's a squirrel that gets in the way all the time, but it's we've got a robot in our applied AI lab, and I had it spell out AI. I spelled out AI lab, and it picked up the letters. Well, because of the glare, it thought V was an A. Well, that's part of it too. So you do need, there's got to be someone there to think about those sorts of considerations as well. So it's the IT, it's the workforce, and it's that focus on efficiency.
So this question's for all of you. So Nicki, we'll start with you. How do we prepare employees for an AI implementation? And then the second part is, how do we build trust in AI so that people are comfortable using it?
So that AI implementation, we have to have the right mindset. We have to have an understanding that there will be people that have resistance to this. They don't want to use AI. They don't trust AI. But we have to start by being the champion of this, right? We have to tell them the good. We have to be honest, though, right? We can't just sweep the bad under the rug. But to build that trust in AI, we've got to have explainable AI. So that really means that this is not a black box. Yes, it seems like magic, but we can have the AI explain how did it get from what it saw to its conclusion. And that builds a lot of trust in people. They believe it, that it's not just magic, that it's not just picking up random occurrences. It can tell you how it got there. I think that goes a long way towards that implementation. So the skills, you have to have your processes correct, but you have to have your people buying in. And that's everybody from the C-suite down to the shop floor, down to your janitor who is helping with things. If you don't have that buy-in across your organization, you can implement whatever you want, but it's just not going to be as successful.
I forgot what I was going to say. That was good.
Do you remember the question?
Huh?
Remember the question?
What was the question?
That's okay. All right. How do we prepare employees for an AI implementation and also to build trust?
So I think there's a lot. Here's why I lost. So there's a lot out there. Like, all right, what jobs are threatened by AI? Who's going to lose their job? Yada yada yada. A lot of that's great entertainment. I like to get my blood pressure up when I hear that. But some of it is stuff we really do need to pay attention to. So there's a table that's been presented by the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development. It shows the most exposed professions. The top of that list was my first job outside of grad school, market research. So that's something. So it's knowledge workers that are mostly exposed, and then the ones that are relatively isolated, I guess, from the pressures are the shop floor. So if you start to deploy it in your organizations, no one's going to lose their job in the factory. If anyone's going to lose their job, it's going to be in the office. But the effect in the office is it's actually making people more productive. They're able to do more. They're able to automate the stuff they hate about their job, which is a big deal. That's a big deal. And you can get to a multiplier of 4 that's been vetted in some early working papers with the National Bureau of Economic Research. You can get to that multiplier of 4 pretty quickly. So how do you get that stance? I think, first of all, at least in an office environment, people are using it already, whether it's sanctioned or not, they're just using it. So leadership uses it as well. I mean, if you pay for it and you have it on your phone, in meetings, bring it up, ask questions, start to build that culture. And I think, again, in the factory, it's really going to do a lot to elevate roles and bring more and more sort of sophistication to what they're doing in the factories.
From a manufacturing floor perspective, I think a way to get buy-in is the same way we do whenever we implement anything that's continuous improvement or quality improvement. Because hopefully, as you're implementing that AI that really relates to production on the shop floor, it is about continuous improvement. It's about increasing output. It's about all the things that our people on the shop floor should be thinking about and should be concerned about. I think just to maybe dovetail on that question a little bit, from an automation student's perspective, the things that they need to know and understand are like what types of data are available to collect, or what types of sensors are available to collect what types of data based on the problems that they want to solve, what is out there, what types, and how can they implement them, where can they install them on the line, to a point Dan made earlier, just about like just all the other influences on the shop floor that can affect how those sensors are running. That's what the automation technician needs to understand, and being able to work with the engineering department to implement those things.
Thank you. Just by a show of hands, how many of you are at the very early stages of trying to implement some level of AI in manufacturing? How many of you say you're kind of at the middle of the road? How many are pretty advanced? All right, I only saw like 5 hands total here. New at it? Pretty new? Middle of the road? Not at all? All right, tough crowd. The reason I was asking that is because I was curious, maybe Dan, if you can start about and talk a little bit about how WCTC can help our local manufacturers that are starting down this journey or have started and are running into roadblocks or just don't even know how to start.
Well, to start, we offer in the lab open enrollment workshops for the general public to enroll and learn about AI in a variety of different levels. So this fall, we have Everyday AI. The first one ran last week. Good turnout on that. AI for productivity, there's a wait list, so we're opening up another section, so there'll be a couple sessions going in November. That's more about the Copilot. That's more about ChatGPT, Claude, and some Gemini maybe. And then Lean AI is where we'll start to focus it a little bit more in a manufacturing setting. In the spring, we're going to have workshops on developing an AI strategy, risk management in AI, and then intellectual property in AI. Aside from that, and those workshops are a great way to send certain employees brush up on skills, but we can also offer custom curriculum and training to your organization. So we'd work to scope out what that looks like, what you're looking to do, and then you can go out and execute on that project on your own if you so choose. So we have a great network of faculty with experience to bring onto these projects and get those skill sets up and running and usable, so you're not relying on a consultant to execute.
Nicki, anything to add?
What was your question?
I went off script.
Oh, man.
How we can help local manufacturers.
So Dan talked more about the lab side. Our degrees, Mike talked about the automation degree, the new integrator degree he's got coming up. We've got our data and analytics program and our AI data specialist program as well. So those are more traditional options as well as our certificates. But the idea is that we take people with some basic computer understanding, and in about 2 years, if you go full time, you should be up to speed to hit, industry at entry level. Hit the ground running there. So the way we try to approach things is more, I like to teach the theory through the application. So if you go to a 4-year school, you sit in the classes and it's all theory, and you get to the end, you're like, okay, now what do I do with this, right? That always bored me. So my approach to education has always been like, let's teach you about how to do a thing, and then let's learn about why we have to follow these best practices. So teach the theory through the application. We teach the students about predictive models. One of the data sets we use is machine data. So it says, here are the thresholds, here the machine went up, it's down, whatever the outcome is. So they start to build these understandings in a variety of industries of, what is this data? How can I use it to predict? Why does it work? What are the things I need to care about? So approaching it that way, these students are going to be coming out with the use cases in mind and understanding what needs to be done to actually build out that use case, versus having just a base level of understanding and not really understanding what needs to happen to implement those things.
The other thing I'll mention is that we've got a lot of stuff on our campus. And by stuff, that doesn't do it justice. We're talking some pretty expensive machinery that students are actually learning to operate in a manufacturing environment. Well, those machines generate data. So we're pulling the data off of those machines as well to use and integrate into our courses. So the students are learning the stuff they're going to be doing. When I left an academic environment and started working professionally, there's a learning curve. A lot of the data sets I learned on were very perfect, from the textbook, too perfect to the extent where I've never encountered a perfect data set like that since. So we kind of want to put the students through the muck, because there's a lot of learning in the muck. You can get to a really deep, rich, applied understanding of how these technologies work. It's not rocket science. The thing about rocket science is it sounds cool. This is artificial intelligence. It's been around since the 50s. We finally have enough of the right technologies that we're able to really launch and start to see that diffusion.
Another thing we offer is our students in their capstones take on real world projects. So I know in Mike's area, you guys just had a vision systems project. One of the capstones we're doing for data in spring will be pulling all the data off of the shop floor devices at WCTC. So our data students can understand, how do I pull the data? How do I dashboard it? How do I model it? We're looking in the future to do student capstone projects in partnership with industry. So if you are a small company and you really don't know where to start, but you've got an idea, maybe our students can help build out a proof of concept for you. Maybe through the lab partnership as well.
Mike, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Allie kind of stole my thunder. We do capstone projects.
Nicki.
Nicki.
Don't follow my lead there. Allie's over there, by the way. You're wondering why we keep calling her Allie.
Right, exactly.
Right there.
Exactly. And just for the record, actually, the last time, Allie, we did a little panel like this. There was only 4 people in the room. A year later, now there's quite a few more people in the room. So great to see that. Maybe, I don't know.
But you really are.
So, yeah, Nicki had a great point with our capstone projects, is we don't do a ton of them every year, but we're looking for ideas for our students to work with, and you're really the customer then. So our students come in and work with you. We set up some parameters and figure out what you may need to have done and how we can work with you to get that done. And it's a semester-long project, so we do some, we manage expectations about how much can get done in a semester, but we're really at a place where we can, I think, really make some impact with the students and give them some great hands-on experience.
So before we open it up for questions, any final thoughts from any of you? Just around AI in general? If
So
not,
I
we
think
can open up.
as a tech college system, and especially here in Waukesha County, we have so many great employers. And we're just really looking forward to diving in with you. And that's how we improve our programs, is by learning what you're doing, you advising us on what to do. So it's great to see so many employers in the room. We look forward to rolling up our sleeves with you as we work through this. And we're certainly learning as we go. We do have some great faculty with some great experience in this area, and to really mentor the students through the process. But it's great to see so many people here, and look forward to connecting with you after this.
I guess the last thought I have is we're pretty much all in the same boat. There's a very few select companies that have got their ducks in a row. The rest of us don't know if we've got ducks or cats or goats or what's going on, right? We're all trying to wrap our brains around this and figure out how to start, where to go. So don't feel alone. Don't feel behind. We're all here.
I would say keep it simple and work to be comfortable a little bit with the unknown. And it's okay to learn by doing. That's how the algorithms learn. That's how machines learn. So if you approach it with knowing that the AI can be humbled, you're going to get the confidence and respect to use it in the right way, in the right manner.
Thank you. Happy to take any questions. Yes, ma'am.
So how far are we away from having a standardized AI practitioners like Six Sigma, Green Belt, Black Belt? What does that look like for this space?
I think you sort of an industry-wide, endorsed framework probably sometime, and I think part of that stems from, in higher education, where does artificial intelligence sit? Is it data science? Is it computer science? Is it engineering? I mean, the reality is it's all of it. So in some ways, it doesn't really matter. I think there's going to be some elements of that woven into existing frameworks, just because it is a very statistical driven sort of discipline, as is Lean Six Sigma, and I think we're working to develop that as well in our workshops and in our curriculum.
Over here, go ahead.
Yep, great question, great question. So we currently have 3 courses that we're teaching as part of the AI program, but they stem out of the automation program. So one of them is, it's basically a PLCs for AI. We have a different course name on it, but that's basically what it is. They have all of the foundational knowledge needed since they've already taken all the PLC classes. Then we have a robotics and vision systems course that is different from the robotics course that they already took, which would give them a much better idea of where that data is and how to collect it, both on the robot and the vision system. And then the third one is more of a systems, manufacturing systems course, using the PLC, robotics, HMI, learning where all that data is collected, how that data flows through the manufacturing process, and then I think they'll be cleaning up some of that data as well as part of that course. So those 3 courses are being offered right now. And then the integration program is even going to get further into some of those things with the programming and pulling the language or the data off and the different things like that. So they'll even get further into the sensor piece once that new program comes out.
A lot of the customers I work with are ISO certified clients. How can AI be applied to updating their documentation for their ISO certification? Because they spend a lot of time doing that.
I think this is where the large language models, aka the ChatGPTs, can come into play, but it would have to be a custom deployment and a custom solution. So something like going directly to OpenAI, or if you're using Copilot, Copilot Studio, it could be a way to tap into that.
Other questions?
Is this a generational issue? Are we seeing that between some of the older folks, older businesses, maybe afraid of it, maybe not understanding it, maybe thinking, I've gotten this far, I don't need it?
So one employer we talked to a couple weeks ago said that, and he literally is probably retiring in a couple years or selling it. He knows it's coming, and his view is that'll be the next generation. But I think that we see many companies that are making big investments in this that are that they know it's coming. And so I think the response is just all over the board, depending on maybe like how did they implement a CNC back in the day when CNCs first hit. So it's just that, how are they approaching new technology, and what has their stance been on that? And those that are on the cutting edge continue to be on the cutting edge.
I actually think that there are segments of older populations that are best suited to embrace these technologies because they've embraced new technologies throughout their careers. So whether that be, floppy disk to a thumb drive, or, emergence of email, things like that. I mean, I remember when my grandfather, he got his first iPhone when he was 84. He only lived to be 85. And, he announced, I'm not a Luddite, which means I'm not anti-technology. And he was like using it, pretty well. So I think there's, I'm very optimistic for that. I think what's going to stand in the way is more our ability to scale these technologies. But that's something that's present throughout each and every major innovation we've had since the invention of steam, or discovery of steam. You can't invent steam, right? I don't know. But steam power. So I'm pretty optimistic about that, just because of all the changes that they've encountered thus far. I think, of course, Generation X as well, and even some millennials. I mean, they're more used to using technology, but, I'm a millennial. I remember the Nokia phone with the snake game. Nothing like what we have now. So I don't know, I'm pretty optimistic about that.
I don't know that it's necessarily a generational thing, but I think it's almost a pride thing. I mean, remember when Sears was still around, right? They weren't going to go modern. They weren't going to do the online sales. They weren't going to do all this stuff. And now they're not here. So I think it becomes a survival mechanism. You have to innovate. You have to implement in order to survive. And that's just what it's become. If you don't streamline, if you don't start to bring in some of these technologies, or even just do the work to get yourself ready for them, unfortunately, a lot of businesses are just not going to survive that.
I can tell you, even within our own organization, we've started to roll this out slowly for some of the same reasons of fear and trust. And so while we're not manufacturing, we're teaching this stuff, and we just started with like 50 Copilot licenses. So it starts to learn the institution, and we have people from one end of the campus to the other starting to use this and share their experiences. I can tell you, I'm one of the people using it, and something that would have taken me easily a week with interruptions to do, with Copilot I had done in 2 minutes, well beyond anything I could have possibly done by myself. So we're all in the same learning curve.
Well, as one of those old guys, but with a very young heart, we're really doing exactly what you guys are talking about. So we found out, and a lot of it, we run lean. So we don't have a lot of people. I don't have an IT staff. I don't have the people to do this. So when people get up and talk AI, we all walk out of here and say, okay, that's great. But it's a big investment. So what we did find out is, because of our controls and things like that on the press, I'm tied into our PLCs. But now it's a fact of, how do you get that data? How do you mine that data? And how are you going to get the information from it? So I have to hire a third party to actually come in and help us do that. So as we sat and looked at this and take a look at how our operations run, productivity, efficiency is critical, but a lot of times we don't have the people. And so what are the machines doing when the people aren't on it? What impact does it have on the organization? What predictive maintenance? So it's not really about buy-in at this point in time. It's about us just gathering the information to share with the employees so they understand, so then you will get the buy-in. So right now, and I don't know how many owners are in here or leaders who have the ability to say, this is what we're going to do, but that's what we did. We said, we got to do it. As we struggle through just your normal day-to-day challenges and people and skill set and cross-training, all of that, we just have to get the baseline of what the world is doing. Our ERP system does some of that, but the information is only as good as going in, right? So by tying to those PLCs, and so we've actually got everything done. We're actually setting our different, 16 to 18 different downtime reasons so that we can do that, and then also get the third party to gather all of this information. Because a lot of times what they'll say is, what are your KPIs? What do you want to get? I don't know. Let's get the information first. Let's see what it's doing, and then you tell me. So I've probably been doing 15 of these, and I walk out and I say, okay, AI, but it's an investment. It's not only a commitment from the leadership team and the people, but it's investing in that equipment, investing in that third party, unless you have somebody who understands it and knows it. It's an investment because what it does for us now is because we don't have the people, we're going to automation. All right, what are those automation machines doing? When are they breaking down? And there's a ton of information you can gather, but that's where I think a lot of us, need some of that help and say, okay, well, you can come in and say, yeah, I'll set it up for you for $100,000. Well, okay, $100,000 is a lot out of my money, out of our pocket, but not necessarily. So we're trying to do it step by step to see what we can do. And that's kind of been our process. So everything that you guys are talking about, I think all of us go out of here, it's a great idea, but how do you implement it? Who do you talk to? And a lot of times you're back into the fray, you're back into the firefighting, you're back, and then 3 months from now, oh yeah, that AI was a good idea. So we're there, we're committing to it, but it's a process. Doesn't happen overnight, and then that can be frustrating for me. But at the same time, getting the people we hired a manufacturing engineer to be the go-to. So I guess just from my perspective, there's a lot there. And I think all of us, I think I'm speaking for most because I have the same thing. This is great, but how do you gather the information to get a good report so that you can use that to be proactive in your business, to be able to be efficient and make money? That was my soapbox.
Good. Thank you. Well said. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I think there's a lot of awareness information that needs to happen. I mean, if you guys could do anything, you have to educate the business community, the manufacturing community about all these different ways to use it. Like I was just thinking, the way to explain it, 9 ways to use AI in the shop and office that make real bottom line money. Tie it back to the bottom line too. I mean, versus a bunch of makes this thing faster, makes this thing better. What does that mean in terms of, if like gentleman just said, put $100,000 into it? Well, he could put $100,000 into lots of things. Is it going to return bottom line money? So there's a lot of awareness that needs to happen, I think.
Dan, you have some?
Yeah, I was just going to say that's where I think we are in AI and just industry more broadly, is figuring out how to scale it and how to deploy it. A lot of the AI that's going to drive the most value is the stuff that's already been used, that we see on our phones and our Instagram reels when we log on, how we log on to our phone. So there's an element of having to navigate between the hype and the reality, and not every application is going to be a go. So that's what I mean by scale. Those bottom line considerations are important, and how you tie that to your business depends on your business, depends on your production line, depends on your strategy, it depends on your IT stack and the talent you have. And the vendors you use. So there's different ways to deploy and implement it. So I think some self-awareness is critical part of that process.
Okay, I have 2 questions. we're new into this AI and we have a product for predictive maintenance. And you guys talked about the key challenges. One of the challenge that we deal with is not with the technicians, the end user, or the engineers. The main challenge we have is the IT department and cybersecurity. So can you comment on that, please? How to convince those guys?
One of our main challenges is cybersecurity in our IT department too. So one of our previous cybersecurity instructors at the college has started a couple different cybersecurity firms. And one of his comments was, if people can't use the systems, yes, it's secure, but that is not the goal of cybersecurity. Working with them, helping them to understand what you are trying to accomplish and why, having a good collaborative IT leader in your organization will go miles. If you don't have the right leadership in IT, unfortunately, in my opinion, you're just dead in the water. And because IT is typically a different silo, right? So if you, depending on where you are in the structure, you may or may not have the ability to influence that. But a company needs a good IT leader that sees the vision and will say, yes, we are going to do this. We will do it securely. We will find a way to make this happen and not violate security standards and not open ourselves up to hacking and all of these other things. But if you don't have the right IT leader, your cybersecurity people are going to default to, nope, can't do it. Let's lock the system down. It's not secure, unfortunately.
Thank you. The second question I have is about the sensors. So are these sensors, are the prices going down on them? Are the sizes going lower? That's one of the challenge that we're dealing with on what sensors that are available and their cost.
Yeah, the cost of sensors is all over the board. I think you can get them for $50 and then it just goes up from there. So it depends what you want to measure. It depends what you're producing. And so that's where your engineering department would have to do that research on what they want to collect and like what the best way is to collect it, the best sensor. But certainly there's a large range of prices for sensing technology.
I had one additional comment on the cybersecurity front. I think we're going to see a lot of processing, what we call in the technical language inference, done locally. So when I log onto my phone, it reads my face and I log on like that. Well, quality sort of application computer vision, you might have a computer on site that has the equation or the algorithm that predicts this is a defect running on site. That is more secure than sending it to the cloud right away. So there's going to be, I think, a more nuance in the cloud edge sort of relationship, but there's some emerging technology and computing on that front to make that more accessible.
Well, panel, thank you for sharing your expertise with everybody today. Thank you all for coming. Have a wonderful day. And if you have questions, we'll be here.